Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dirt and the Divine. This is the podcast where we say what needs to be said. I'm so excited today to have my good friend here and colleague, I guess, in a way, right? Holly McCorriston. I hope I did not just butcher that.
Sounds
Hello,
good to me.
How are you?
I'm doing really well today. How are you, Krisha?
Good. I'm amazing. Welcome to the show. I am super excited to have you here as a guest. We met recently, I guess. Oh, I guess it was like it's 2021 now, March, and we met through Artist Morning. Last year, like the end of the year, and we've connected a couple of times, just having really big juicy conversations. And I of course invited you to come onto this podcast because you have a lot of really important things to say with regards to ownership over our own bodies, our own health, our mental health, our physical health, all the rest of it. And it's not just something that you're spewing for the sake of spewing. You have an extensive history with regards to working with people behind the pharmacy counter. And that informed a lot of your decision to recently, start your own, coaching and mentorship business in order to try to help support people. And so I want you to talk to us more about that. And then we're going to get into some juicy stuff around, personal responsibility and taking care of our own health and so on and so forth. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Krisha.
So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your recent transition? How did it come about?
Yeah.
Like what happened? Yeah.
Absolutely. So long story short, I'd been experiencing professional personal burnout for a couple years. First time I noticed it was probably it was probably back in 2017. And I had dabbled with a few things like minimalism and starting to travel and all of these things that I thought might fix how I felt from the outside.
Right.
Because I was very comfortable where I was living. I had my own home. I was working close to where I lived and it was comfortable and easy. But that like feeling of lack and like something is missing, right? So you start going to get it from outside of yourself.
Yeah.
So from there, kind of discovered I was doing that, looking outside of myself for the answers and that I wasn't going to find them there. And I ended up just about opening up my own pharmacy because I thought that, I could do it much better completely on my own than I could with a staff or a boss or any of these resources that I had available to me. I thought for sure I could do it better on my own, but there was something, it was like that whisper of that inner voice that you don't even know you have that said, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday in your hometown for the next 10 to 15 years. Are you sure that's what you want? So to investigate as to whether or not I was still invested in the profession, I actually attended 2 professional conferences back when that was still a thing. I attended the provincial conference in Saskatchewan here, and then I actually flew out to Toronto to attend the national pharmacy conference, and I attended an additional seminar that was about women in pharmacy leadership. And while I was there, I really had this revelation that pharmacy's fucked, like to put it as succinctly as possible.
Yeah.
The people working in the profession are miserable.
Right.
A lot of the patients are miserable, not getting the support they need. There's so much babysitting and hand holding and lots of not my job, whose job is it, and finger pointing and who's going to pay for that. And really, it was really disheartening to see. So I came back from that going, I think pharmacy needs a life coach. And I enrolled in life coach training like less than a month later.
I love that.
Yeah. So I have worked with a couple pharmacists, but I've really also been called to serve the patients and just the regular everyday people that are the ones looking for help and going, You know, who's going to help me? And bringing it back around to, we're going to learn to help ourselves.
Yeah.
That's always what it is, like empowering the individual, empowering them to navigate themselves in the healthcare system should they so need it. And also like looking after ourselves before we need it. Because there's so much emphasis in the society that you just push and you keep going and you keep doing all of the things until something happens, right? You hit a crisis or a wall or a broken leg. And it's so frustrating when people are already there to bring them out of it. So no wonder healthcare isn't doing a good job, because people are already so hurt by the time they get there.
Yeah, they're pretty broken. And like you said, like you touched on, they like nobody's really given a roadmap on how to take care of their health, you know? Like it's like when I have these conversations about relationships, or when I have these kinds of conversations about like self-love, like we are not taught these things at all. We are literally in a society where from birth, we are looking outside at other people, other authorities besides ourselves in order to know what to do or how to act or how to behave in certain circumstances, right? And it's not until we get to this phase of our journey, if we ever get there, the soul awakening, before we start to recognize and go, holy crap, it's me. I'm responsible for my happiness, my love, my, you know, all the rest of it, and our health, right? So talk to me a little bit more about your journey into burnout, because like I had something really similar to that led me into my business as well. Like I was burnt out from working in corporate, and I had like adrenal fatigue. I'd gained a ton of weight. I had IBS, which anybody listening or watching, it's irritable bowel. It's a digestive issue. Not pretty. And I had migraines, probably 1 to 2 a month, for years. And I dealt with my body through like medication, you know, and I also struggled with depression. And so I tried to stay away from the antidepressants and stuff, because anytime a doctor put me on them, I felt really like totally fucked up. So I was like, okay, there's something not right with that. But with the IBS, it was like this antispasmodic medicine. For the migraines, it was just migraine medicine. Like there was nothing about, you know, hey, your digestive system could have some looking at here, you know, like how are you managing your stress? How much water are you drinking? How many vegetables have you eaten this week, right? Like how often do you move your body? What is the quality of the air that you're breathing? And then on top of that, what are the thoughts that you're thinking, you know, and all the rest of it. So talk to us about your journey in and through burnout.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's hard to even really pinpoint where it started, but definitely working in healthcare and caregivers, I feel really place an additional burden upon themselves that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And, you know, you hear the cliches of, you know, you can't nurture from an empty cup, and you can't look after other people unless you look after yourself. And the thing about cliches is that they're true.
They're true. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a part of us that just sabotages, and it's like, cliche, can't be that simple. And it is that simple. Yeah. When I hired a life coach in April of 2019, when I was trying to make that decision about whether or not I should open my own pharmacy. And I knew I could not make that decision from that place of desperation. It was like, this, I didn't know who should be making it, but I knew that I was sick or something. And when you're in it, this is the other thing, is you don't know you're in it because you're so protected and you're so angry and you're so guarded and you're so just desperate and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's also very hard to even know how to get to those people. And I saw it lots at the pharmacy, because I would drop that word. I would drop stress, and I would ask questions like you just mentioned, you know, how much water are you drinking? And, you know, how are you supporting your mental health? And, you know, where are you on your own priority list?
Yeah.
And some people,
most people.
Yeah. Well, or some people would just collapse right at the counter because they're like, geez, nobody has ever asked me these questions. And then it turns into the, well, why has my doctor never asked me these questions? You know, why have I never asked myself these questions? And in my own burden of burnout, it became, then I was trying to figure out how to support those people, rather than, I didn't have the skills, tools, and abilities that I have now as a coach to turn it back to them to open their own mind and get them out of that desperate place.
Right.
Because it can be done succinctly, and it can be done in a short amount of time with just the energy of the question. So even without any coach training at the National Pharmacy Conference, I was asking these other pharmacists, you know, hey, what happens to the quality of your workday if you actually just spend the time you have with the patient instead of resenting being with the patient because you have to answer the phone, or because you have 15 prescriptions to check, or you have 19 other things to do, right? Bringing it back to the quality of the interaction versus the quantity.
Yeah.
So I was going home at the end of every day in the midst of this super frustrating burnout, and pharmacy is not set up to support the caregivers and the providers in any way. And people that have not spent any time observing what actually happens in retail pharmacy, I cannot believe that it is expected to be a healthcare profession, because it is literally like McDonald's fast food. You're doing 19,000 things and trying not to kill people at the same time. So I was coming home at the end of every day, crying, wondering how many people I had killed that day because I couldn't do my job to the best of my ability, because the phones wouldn't stop ringing, because I felt unsupported by my coworkers, because the workflow was horrific.
Yeah.
And it was, and I mean, part of it, yes, indeed, was my own story about that, because I probably wasn't killing anyone. I'm actually, I was a wonderful pharmacist, even, but
that's a real valid thought though. Like, I mean, it is on the extreme scale, and that's where our mind goes when we're super stressed out, right? Like we are naturally black and white thinkers anyway, as humans, right? And so of course we're going to go to that extreme end of, oh my God, who did I kill today? But that thought wouldn't even be there if you were supported. Right. So it seems irrational, but it's not. It's like, if you were calm and in your Zen moment, you might still ask the same question, just maybe not in that same, like, how did I kill today? It might be like, I wonder how responsible that was today. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's same question, well, different.
And that's another reason I didn't open my own pharmacy, was because I went all the way to Edmonton. You know, I lied to my staff that I worked with so that I could take this trip to open this business. And they try and sell you this wonderful little parcel and tell you that you'll be able to offer clinical services and really support people and help them.
Yeah.
But the caveat is, it's, 5 years down the road when you're making enough money off dispensing fees to hire staff. So I was like, this is still, I want to support people now. I want to have conversations with them that open their own minds now. I don't want to.
Yeah. You don't want to wait.
I didn't want to wait, and I didn't want to rely on dispensing fees, because it's a service. Like, it's also service. No, sorry, transaction based. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You pay a dispensing fee and you get your pills, and that's it.
Yeah.
So the model is really broken, and there's this push for deprescribing, but then the pharmacies lose money because they're making less dispensing fees. So the whole
it's so awful, and it's probably in the States too, right?
Well, yeah, and then because we're in Canada, my understanding of pharmacist burnout in the States is even worse, because they're so like shackled almost to the dispensing and the just being a cog in the machine, in the big pharma machine of like, well, we don't make money if we don't get these pills out the door. So
awful.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So there you are, having these like extreme thoughts and so what led you to then just breaking free of those chains and just being like, fuck, my phrase for the last 15, 18 months, 24 months has been, fuck this motherfucking shit, right? When something is just like done out, it's like, we're done. So what was your F TMFT moment, which is, I think, going to be the name of my next book.
Next book.
Next book, yeah, I have like 14 that I've written and never published, but anyway.
I see. Yeah, I don't know if there was a moment, but it may have indeed been being at that conference.
Yeah.
And an aside too was I had been trying to get sober at the time and I was at that conference, and I was indeed hungover, disappointed with myself, and just looking around the room going, I am not the only one that's disappointed in myself, what I'm doing.
Yeah, you could feel that in the energy, I'm sure.
Oh, it was. And I so desperately wanted to walk up to the microphone and just say in front of the entire conference, like, can we just be where we are? Can we just be where we are? Can we just be where we are? And I couldn't do it. Everything in my body was blocked. I didn't know anything about chakras. I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know anything about healing at the time. But I had been so called at that time to just walk up to the mic in front of everybody and, say, can we just be where we are? And I didn't even know what it was. So that was probably the pivotal moment, because I came home, enrolled in coach school, and did a whole bunch of other things that people thought were very strange for pharmacists to be doing, like attending online courses in intuitive healing, and was taking this life coach training, and I started asking better questions at work. I started to see the benefit of being where I was, because it did change the energy of the patient interactions, and people started saying, I don't know what it is about you, but I trust you. Mm-hmm. And
because
it was powerful.
Yeah.
So
you were grounded in something, and that was actually mentioned this morning on the meditation, right? It was about being, when you have an experience in something and then you take that experience, which is this whole premise of this entire podcast, is having conversations with people like yourself who had a real life experience and then turned that into wisdom that is now supporting others, so that these people knew that you weren't just on some sort of soapbox. You had gone through the physical experience of yourself and were able to speak to them from a place of compassion and wisdom. So of course they listened to you. Of course they did, because they knew. People know at a real deep level, even if they don't know, that there's truth being spoken. And those who are open and ready to receive that truth are the ones that will walk forward and say, tell me more, Holly. What do I need to know? Or like you said, collapse, because it's like, nobody's ever asked me that question before. It's brilliant. I love what you're doing and how you transition this into something that, you can go deeper now with people, because I could see that, you could have chosen this path, stayed as the pharmacist with this new sort of spiritual outlook, right? But you still would have been kind of a cog in that machine, right?
Oh, yeah. And I was being penalized by my coworkers and the system for spending too much time with people. So, I mean, I know I could have an impact in 2 minutes, but at the same time, when you spend half an hour,
yeah, you can heal somebody completely in half an hour almost. Maybe not, but you know what I mean? Like, definitely more than a 30-second here's your prescription can do, for sure.
Yeah, like what else have you been offered to support yourself with this aside from these pills? That can be a big question.
Yeah. So let's go there. So let's talk about that now. Let's talk about that, like, personal responsibility piece of it, right? I know you have a lot to say around this. So just start riffing off. What do you have to say about that?
Well, one of the messages I came up with that just downloaded with me last summer was really this idea of being your own hero. Yeah. Nobody is going to rescue you. These people standing at the pharmacy counter just desperate for me to fix them, or for their doctor to fix them, or for these pills to fix them, I really found super disempowering and almost enabling in a way, because it is just like, well, here's this fix. And I mean, I've dug more and more into also like the efficacy of antidepressants and this and that. And the placebo effect is huge. Yeah. And it is disheartening for me. And it definitely was then to see people not listened to, not heard, and not knowing how to listen to themselves.
Right.
Like at the end of my career, before I left the building, I was handing people bottles of Prozac and being like, can you just hold this up to your chest for me? And just close
Ooh.
your eyes. And I just want you to take a breath. And, how do you feel about putting this in your body? Like, how does your body feel? And some people thought I was crazy. And some people were like, wow, like, again, like nobody had ever brought that to them or let them know that they had an option is the thing. So I'm not saying you should or shouldn't take antidepressants, but I'm saying you should be given the choice to be informed
and empowered
and to know, and empowered. And and I know what it's like too, to be at the bottom of the hole and try and make a call for help. Because that's the other thing about accessing mental health services.
Yeah.
Which is also very hard to do. Like, because again, when you're in that desperate place of like, I need help and I need it yesterday, and you finally get on the phone. I did that once and I was asked, well, what do you need? And I'm like, well, I actually don't know. Like my heart's racing and I can't get it down. Okay, well, give us a call back when you know what you need. What?
Yeah.
And I'm a pharmacist with a head on her shoulders and a life coaching diploma. And a lot of it, I was doing that out of curiosity to see what the experiences were like for people.
Right.
And I'm like, holy hell, which also to me sheds light on the importance of looking after ourselves when we feel good. Because when you're in the hole, you're desperate and you want to not feel that anymore. And then when you don't feel it anymore, you go, oh, well, I don't know what the big deal was. So I'm just going to, hope it doesn't come back.
Right.
But it's in that space of like, oh, I actually feel better. What could I do from this place to look after myself so that doesn't occur, or so that I have the skills, tools, and abilities to deal with it should it so return?
Yeah.
Because this is the thing about anxiety and depression is we call them medical conditions and diagnoses and we label people with them. And in my opinion, it can also help them identify with that and keep it.
Right.
But it doesn't empower people, again, to know that they're just states and you're going to go into them and you're going to go out of them.
Yeah.
But how do you look after yourself so that you recognize you're falling into the hole again and who you can call to get out of it, or
what you can do or whatnot. Or, and if there is a clinical reason, for example, or somebody has been prescribed forever and it's just starting to wake up and recognize like, oh, wait, I can make my own decision here or whatnot. It's just knowing, like when you're clear of the fog enough to know that, okay, wait, there's other things that can be done here. Right. Like I had a lot of clients when I was mostly focusing on nutrition, who were on like tons of medications, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, all sorts of stuff. Right. And they were like, I desperately want to get off this medication. And when I never touched that stuff, but it was with the other work that we were doing on, like helping them get healthier and eat better and think better and move their bodies in a different kind of way. The prescription medications would just start to drop off one by one. They would go back to their doctor and they're like, listen, I'm feeling better about this. I don't need this anymore. And they would start to wean off whatever their medications were. So I think there's a window here and an opportunity here to educate and inform people that, okay, like depending on where you are on that wave, right? When you are feeling a little bit better and your head's not so deep in the dark, I know what that feels like. It's heavy and you can't see anything. And it can feel like just awful when you're swirling around in that depressive state, right? It can really feel hopeless and that you don't know that there's any sunshine. There's no light in that, right? But when you do finally get to that light, that's when you've got to, like you said, not be lazy about it and just be like, okay, cool, I'll keep taking the pills. But like, oh my God, like there's other things I can do besides just take this pill in order to take responsibility of my health, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, all the rest of it. Right. And that includes a lot of, knowing what your body is talking about. Like you said, when you said, bring that thing to your heart, our heart has such resonance. It knows, It knows when something is a yes or a no. And so training like that muscle in a way, and, starting to do other things that work on our digestive system, work on our like other areas of our life in order to help like rebalance the chemicals in our body so that we're not so reliant on these particular medications if we don't need to be, right? But I think that's important. And that's the window that a lot of people get missed because there isn't that big of a conversation. I mean, it's getting bigger, but it's not that big yet. And there's still a lot of people who are just like, okay, I feel better, but I'm going to keep doing this and not take any kind of personal responsibility. And then the next thing you know, you're in a hole again. Right?
Yeah. It's another one of those really disheartening and disempowering things that I really found in pharmacy was, first of all, the pharmacists are often, overworked, tired, want to help. But again, it's like people are, what are the dispensing fees for? It's like, well, we're supposed to be checking in with you when you pick them up to see how they're working for you.
Wow.
Do you have any questions? And a lot of the times it's not happening if it's a refill.
Yeah.
But I started having those questions, how long have you been on these? Like, have you ever considered discussing with your physician going off of them?
Right.
And Western medicine is so fear-based. Yeah. Because often the response from the patients was, I'm scared to go off of them. I am not willing to go back to feeling that way. And some of them would go so far as to talk to the doctor, and the doctor would go, well, do you think they're working for you? And they would go, well, I'm not having any issues, or I haven't had any issues since it. Well, then why would you go off of them? And I don't know what the experience is like for people that live in cities, but this is rural Saskatchewan, and this is the common experience. This is what happens here. And I'm not throwing the doctors under the bus. I know they're doing the best they can with the 15 minutes they have, or the phone call that they have now that we're in the middle of, some people in this town hadn't seen a doctor in over a year because of the pandemic, because they weren't seeing anyone face to face. So if you're a young woman suffering with depressive symptoms and you're at the end of your rope and you don't know what to do, and you get on the phone with this doctor that's not even looking you in the eye, that says, well, I don't know what to do. Here, take these pills. See you later. And then they come to me and I ask them, all these questions, like, what do you have for support? What are you doing? Like, what else have you tried? Like, who do you have that can support you? Like, all of these things. And it's like, I don't know, Krisha. I can see why people are like, I don't know what to do. And everybody, and then you just collapse and you walk away, because it's like, how did this become normal? The system we rely on? This is the system we're protecting and relying on right now.
It's incredibly frightening. It's really frightening, So let's switch the conversation a little bit to talk about how people can empower themselves, right? So, what can people do? So anybody who's watching or listening right now who's like, okay, what these women are saying is making a lot of sense, but I don't know what the fuck to do, because like, if I go to my doctor, I'm going to get the same response. If I go to my pharmacist, I'm going to get the same response. Like, what do I do? What do I do at this point? So what would you say to somebody who's listening right now and is in this predicament?
Honestly, the simplest, easiest thing I think anybody can say is be here now, which can be confusing. Well, what does that even mean?
Okay, so let's.
And it is, and to me, it's like empowering people to know that they have a choice. Because once you've been labeled or diagnosed or handed something, maybe as a kid you were told you were too sensitive, it's like, oh, choice. I get to choose. Am I that or am I not? What do I want to feel? And I don't know. It's like knowing that we can shift in the moment if we can get there. Like, so I love to just teach people super simple embodiment techniques. And I mean, I don't call them that because they're embodiment. What is that? That's scary. But it's like, okay, well, just come back to where you are. Like, can you take a breath? Like, can you rub two fingers together with such attention that you can feel your fingertip ridges? And just be like, oh, yeah, the more I do that, the more control I have over my thinking. I had a lot of clients. Yeah. Like I had a lot of clients really liked what's called the butterfly hug, where you just basically take your hands and you just put them on your collarbones and you just tap. And it's really just being like, oh, yeah, I don't have to be up here. I don't have to be, because we think we need to figure it all out. We think we need to figure it all out. We need to figure it all out now. And it's up to us. And it's like, well, let's just first things first. Like, can you just be with me? Can you look me in the eye? With a lot of patients, especially if they were overwhelmed at the counter, it would just be like, look, can you just look me in the eye? And that was the other thing I hated about working during the pandemic is they put this glass up in between us. Yeah. And it reflected, the lights reflected off the glass. And then I couldn't even make eye contact with people. So you're so physically distanced and then so cut off because I couldn't even see people. So I did end up spending lots of time on the phone. But it's just like, and recognizing that there's two different channels everywhere, right? There's a data channel, which is what I'm saying to you. And there's like an energetic channel of how I'm saying it. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, there's so many simple things we can do, but it's all like, can you come back to yourself? Can you close your eyes and ask yourself, like, what's even real when your eyes are closed? Like, what evidence do you have that anything exists? You don't really have any. And I know some of it's like really meta and like esoteric and it's like maybe too big for people, but it's like, I started breaking it down to like, can you just notice how you narrate everything that goes on around you? You know, if you're walking down the street and you see somebody parked like a dickwad, are you going, oh my God, I can't believe that guy parked like that? And how is it affecting your energy? And can you just let it go? Like small things, you know, start with those. Yeah. Yeah. Little things. Go. Right. The need to control all of that. Yeah. Can you notice your feet in your shoes when you're standing there talking to me? Yeah. Can you notice, like, it's just notice, notice, be where you are, pay more attention. Like, and the more we do that, the more it weakens the stranglehold the survival brain has on us. And I started talking to some patients at the pharmacy about like the 3 different brain systems, or the reptilian, limbic, and neocortex to those that were interested. And even with my clients. Those down for us? Sorry? Can you break those? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the gist of it is there are 3 different brain systems. And the most ancient of them is indeed the reptilian brain. And it's the one we will often default to because it's our survival skills. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, the reptilian brain is the one that pulls the hand off. It's the one that's like, oh, hot. And you don't have to think about it. It's a default survival instinct. The limbic brain is your emotional brain. And it's not even capable of language. It's just, what are you feeling? Like, it's sensations, right? You're like, oh, I'm driving in traffic and I'm like, and you may not have words for it. Yeah. So it's newer than the reptilian brain, but it's not super sophisticated by any means. Like, you don't want to be running around in your limbic brain 24/7, which is where a lot of us are. We're in limbic and reptilian, and they take up so much energy. Yep. And then your neocortex is actually the brain that's capable of rational thought, thinking, planning. And we also have this misconception that we want to be there 24/7, but you really only want to be there when you're needing to be focused and taking clear laser focused action and making a plan and learning and those kinds of things, prioritizing. And it sucks up, again, a ton of energy, these 3 different brains, but the limbic and the reptilian always will hijack the neocortex. So if you're having some kind of a reaction, so if you've burned yourself, or maybe you haven't burned yourself, maybe somebody's just said a snide comment and it feels like you've burned yourself. Yeah. You are in what is called emotional hijack, and you cannot think. Yeah. You cannot think with your neocortex, which again, it normalizes it. So instead of telling people they're sick or they have borderline personality disorder or whatever, it's like, no, actually, you just have all these neural pathways that are defaulting to survival brain. And that's just the path that's been worn in the carpet.
Yeah.
It's just going to go that way, and it's going to go that way, and it's going to go that way until you break the pattern, until you're aware of the pattern and going, oh, you mean I don't have to punch the wall every time my partner says something snide? I can pause. I can take a breath. And it's so like everyone is so sensitive right now, right? There's social media. That happened to me yesterday. Someone made a comment and it was just like my heart rate shot through the roof. And I'm like, ooh. I was like, I don't even know these people. They don't know where I'm coming from. They don't know my background history. Like they're just coming out from their story and what. So, and then it's like, ooh, I don't have to engage.
Yeah. It's respond, not react.
Yeah.
And I think just, at the time of recording this right now, we are like, a year deep into this, this pandemic. And I think I know people are just completely in their fear mind, because things are scary and, but there is no rational thought in that. And, and that, like, I find that when I get into my fear brain, if I have a trigger or an activation or something like that, that puts me into a pattern from childhood that makes me feel unsafe for whatever reason. Like, prior to knowing any of this, I would have just been in that heightened state of arousal in my body, and not the good kind. Just like kind of panicky feeling and not know that I was in something. Like it was just how I was constantly. And now, like, because of that knowledge, this is like that wisdom, it's the knowledge, it's informing, right? This is how, like, I love what you're saying, is because we just need to slow down long enough to recognize that we have a choice in that moment, but it takes time to build up to that choice because we are in such reactivity mode. But when you start to see and feel and sense in your body, for me, when the panic comes on, for whatever reason, it feels like this cascade, and it's a cascade of hormones that go through your body. And I feel like I go blind in it. Like for me, the sensation is like, I can no longer see. Right. And it kind of just shuts me down. And then that puts me into that limbic brain of the emotional response of whatever, like the anger or the fear or whatever it is that's going on. And now, with the work that I've done, I have such separation between what's happening in my physical body and my conscious higher self that I can witness myself going through that whole entire motion and not move a muscle, whereas before I might react and whatever, right? Now it's just like, okay, got it, breathe through it, cool, juicy, interesting trigger. And then you work on the trigger.
And it's just energy. This is the other thing. Like, even the word emotion is just energy in motion. And we all have these stuck energies in our bodies, and they get hit, and we take them so personally. And it's just like, no. It's like, let's just normalize this. Like, I'm in the middle of this 8-week breath work group right now, and I'm listening to the way that we're talking to each other and what we're going through. And literally, if we took what we're going through on this breathwork journey to like a medical doctor, we would all be committed, because it's like,
it's true.
Yeah, it's like normalizing these emotional journeys and being like, oh, I'm just releasing some stuck energy. Like, it doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean you're this or you're that or there's something wrong with you. It's like everybody's got energy stuck in them, and it gets hit. And it's like, can we now enable and empower people to be like, oh, this is sticky or friction. I like to call it friction. And then I'm like, it is each individual's responsibility to go in with the sandpaper and just like soften the friction so that it's not so invasive and like
pokey.
Irritating. And coming up in the middle of relationships and interactions, right? It's like, if everybody could be like, oh, this friction is mine, it's mine to deal with, it's not my husband's problem, it's not, if you were to say something to me and I like were to feel my stuff come
Yeah.
up, it's not your job to fix it.
Yeah.
It's my job.
Yeah. And it's your job to know that it might not have been something I said or did. Like it's your friction. It's not my friction.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. And this is the
Yeah.
thing about owning it
Yeah.
again, is going, oh,
Yeah.
well, because the society, it seems like we live in, it's almost bubble wrapped, right? It's like, oh, we can't say that. It will trigger people. It will bother them. It's insensitive. And it's like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
that's a whole other hour.
That's a whole other, that's a whole other episode.
Right? It's like, you're not using the right language. It's like, oh, okay. Well, what about the language bothers you? And how do we look at that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, as we wrap this up, we've covered a lot of things in this episode, mostly around, and it all centers, swirls into the point of basically personal responsibility, right? It is owning your health. It's owning, it's sovereignty, right? Over your body, sovereignty over your thoughts and your emotions and your reactions and responses and stuff like that. And your health ultimately, so what would be some like final parting thoughts or suggestions or anything like that you would have for the listeners, in terms of walking more into taking personal responsibility? Because I find that we are a victim-based society, and especially like in North America, right? And it's all like blame culture and all the rest of it. And so what is personal responsibility? Like we're not, again, it's one of those things that we're just not taught, right? So what would be your final thoughts around that particular topic?
Well, I mean, it might be a little bit sensitive for some people to say, but it is this idea that we've chosen everything that we have in our lives, everything that exists in some way, shape, or form. We have chosen it. Now, this is where people go, well, I didn't choose abuse. I didn't choose that. And it's like, okay, maybe you didn't choose those things. However, now that they have occurred,
yeah,
and you're in the position that you're in, it is your responsibility to clean it up and have a look at it and see what's there and do something about it and take action.
Yeah.
Because all of these things happen to me. I'm a victim. I'm waiting for someone else to solve my problems. Is not serving anyone, because it is not anyone else's job. And this idea that anybody else has our best interest at heart is a lie.
Yeah.
You can think your doctor has your best interest at heart, but I mean, he's got his own best interest at heart, or he or she should. Yeah. And you, as the patient, as the individual, as the person living in the society, really have to be like, just come into your own power and be like, I decide.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's as simple as even your mood, your attitude in the moment. What do I want? Yeah. Choose. Yeah. And keep choosing, and forgive yourself. Yeah. And forgive yourself when you forget to choose, and forgive yourself when you choose wrong. Yeah. And just keep choosing. Oh, yeah. And just keep choosing until your body just fills with what it is that you want instead. Yes, exactly. And then and you can feel it. You can feel it when something is way off. It's like a pebble in the shoe, it's like, ooh, something's really off here. Whereas before, when you're not in that personal responsibility state, you've got like a shoe full of rocks, and you get used to it. Yeah, and you're able to recover faster is the other thing. I mean, I teach mental fitness. It's all about noticing, changing. And then even if you do get hijacked, can you come out of it? Like, how fast can you come out of it? Oh, yeah. You don't have to stay there. Yeah. You can go if you want, but yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this conversation, Holly. This is so important. And obviously we can just keep going. So I really appreciate everything that you shared here today, and being like so raw and honest, like we need to have more
big conversations around these particular topics, because we do really need to start taking personal responsibility for our health, mental health, for the decisions that we make in our own bodies, especially right now with everything that's going on. There's a lot of confusion, and I think personally, I think that we know our own wisdom. And when we start to give ourselves permission to trusting that wisdom, when something feels off or not right, or right, or whatever, trust that, no matter what people around are blah, blah, blahing about, you got to listen to yourself, first and foremost. And that comes from, like you said, getting in the moment, right here, right now, being present with yourself, doing those practices that allow you to just get out of that, reactive space and into something that's more responsive. And that's how we're going to step into empowering ourselves for our health.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quit looking for it on the outside. It's all right here.
Yeah. And it's not a quick fix either. I think that's the other thing too, is that it's not a quick fix. It's not a pill. It's work. And what, to your point, and my Kundalini teacher would always say, if you, hang on, if you stay ready, you don't need to get ready. That's what he always says, so to your point, right? So his is like, if you're doing your breath work every single day, then when the shit hits the fan, you're going to be good. You're not going to go down so far, because you're maintaining your baseline, your water level, right? Is staying at a certain level. And I think that's exactly what you're trying to say, is like, when we're in the good, we got to keep building that, so that when the bad hits, good, bad, quote, in quotation marks here. But when we're in an episode or whatever we want to call it, then we know, oh, okay, right, I remember like breath work, or I remember meditation, or I remember yoga, or I remember just putting my two fingers together, or I remember this, that, and the other. I don't have to just reach for that pill. So yeah.
And knowing, and just knowing, it's like, I have infinite access to wisdom in my own body, in my own self. I don't have to go look for it. Like, it's always there.
Yeah.
So it's just so reassuring.
Yes. It is. It is. So where can people find you, Holly? You're on Instagram for sure.
I am on Instagram. I don't know. I love Instagram. I think it's just fun. And I love the spontaneity of being able to create and just hit publish. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's just holly.mccorriston. I'm also on Facebook. It's mostly just my Instagram content shoved over to Facebook. But I am on Facebook, and I have a website, just hollymccorriston.com. So it's HOLLYMCCORRISTON.com. That's a long name. Thank you, parents.
I'm going to put the link in the show notes, not to worry.
Thanks.
Thank you, parents. So cute.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm around, I'm online, love engaging. I love having these kinds of conversations. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, and for sharing your wisdom. I really appreciate you, saying what needed to be said about this particular topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you as well, dear listener and watcher of The Dirt and the Divine. If you have any questions for Holly or myself, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. We are here to serve and to support you in your ascension, in your healing journey at this time. So thank you so much for being here, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you, or you will hear me, in the next episode. Bye for now. Bye, Holly. Thank you.